Now, France, they also state that they are recognizing Palestine as a statehood. And I told you some of these countries prior to. And Trump to address UN as the division with allies deepen over Palestinian statehood and trade. So America, again, has not recognized Palestine as a statehood. I mean, we are literally the world power, but we have all these European nations, we have all these countries around the world that are recognized Palestine as a statehood, but we have yet to do so. And I just want to show you very quickly here a map of all the countries who plan to recognize Palestine as a statehood and those who have already recognized Palestine as a statehood. So the bright green that you see here, they recognize Palestine as a statehood, and the orange is they plan to recognize Palestine as a statehood. And I believe there's only one country, and that's Slovenia. Okay, this country right here, very small country in Europe, they are planning to recognize Palestine as a statehood. But I want you guys to really look at this. We're talking about Australia, almost the entire continent of Africa, with the exception of these two countries right here. You have Russia, China, Mongolia, ladies and gentlemen, India, Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, I mean, all the stands, Turkey, Iraq, Syria, okay, France, Spain, Portugal, I named some of these, United Kingdom, Ireland, Norway, Sweden, okay? So all of these countries, even Iceland has recognized it, okay? But this is Alaska right here, and this is United States of America. We have Hawaii over here somewhere. This is part of Central America, but Nicaragua, Mexico, El Salvador, Belize, Guatemala. The entire continent of South America has recognized Palestine as a statehood. So almost the entire world, and the only parts that have not recognized Palestine as a statehood is the ones you see in gray, okay? India, Nepal, I mean, all of these countries are recognizing Palestine as a statehood, except the one that most people believe it means the most is the United States of America. Is the United States of America. We have yet to recognize Palestine as a statehood by the way of President Trump. So Prime Minister Starmer came out with this message here.
The hope of peace and a two-state solution. I state clearly, as Prime Minister of this great country, that the United Kingdom formally recognizes the state of Palestine. We recognized the state of Israel more than 75 years ago as a homeland for the Jewish people. Today, we join over 150 countries who recognize a Palestinian state also, a pledge to the Palestinian and Israeli people that there can be a better future.
Well, and I know some of the questions that you guys may have. Why is this so important that the world, especially the UN and the support of all these other countries, actually recognize Palestine as a statehood? So this is about recognition versus reality. History has spoken, ladies and gentlemen, because the United Nations General Assembly, alongside more than 140 nations worldwide, has recognized Palestine as a state. Yet, as Gaza burns under relentless Israeli bombardment, the world is asking, does recognition matter when bombs keep falling? Gaza is in flames. Gaza is in rubble. Gaza has nearly been destroyed. Every structure, every building. That is the question that a lot of people are having. Why is it so important that the UN and these 140 nations worldwide has recognized Palestine as a state? Again, does recognition matter when bombs keep falling? And the answer is, it's a mixed bag. The answer is both yes and no, because recognition is power. Recognition is legitimacy. Recognition is survival in the eyes of international law, but recognition doesn't stop missiles. Recognition doesn't stop starvation that's been occurring in Gaza. Recognition doesn't stop war crimes that's been happening in Gaza. Because again, according to the UN, Israel, by the way of the IDF, is committing a genocide. That's not me speaking, that's the UN. And so the struggle of Palestine is now caught between symbolism of being recognized as a state and the reality, because statehood recognition, they now have access to the ICC and the ICJ. And that's what I had up on your screens here very quickly, ladies and gentlemen. The ICC, the International Criminal Court, prosecutes individuals for war crimes and genocide and crimes against humanity and aggression, acting as a court of last resort when national courts cannot or will not act. In contrast, International Court of Justice, the ICJ that we spoke about, is the United Nations principal judicial organ that hears civil disputes between states and issues advisory opinions. And most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, the UN has its own army, which is a mixed bag of all of these countries under the UN. So that we have United Nations and as people will say, they have their own, again, they have their own soldiers, but some people say they're humanitarian soldiers, but they can actually go in and stand in the way of the IDF and literally stop the genocide, stop the war crimes, stop the killing, stop the destruction of Gaza. But will they? Now that the UN during its General Assembly and have the backing of 140 countries that are under the UN recognize Palestine as a statehood, and they now have access and powers of the ICC and the ICJ, what is the UN now going to do? Because as I stated before, Gaza is in flames. But here's one thing that a lot of people are missing. America's veto power. While US is refusing the recognition of Palestine, and the refusal carries weight. And we're talking about the Security Council permanent seat and the military funding to Israel. The Gaza crisis and the recognition that we're referring to strengthens the Palestinians' voice in war crime investigations. By the way, of humanitarian corridors, but it doesn't end the IDF strikes. While all of this is going on, even though they've been recognized, it's not going to stop the IDF and all the strikes they've been occurring. Do not forget, there was roughly 2 million people living in Gaza. And the reports have it that 61,000 plus people have perished. And out of that 61,000 people, they're stating anywhere from between 15 to 20,000 of them have been Hamas militants, Hamas terrorists. So roughly 40,000 innocent people have been killed. Are these legitimate claims for war crimes? Is this a legitimate claim for genocide? And now that Israel has basically deployed a ground invasion of Gaza and reoccupying Gaza, you guys remember the reoccupying of Gaza, and this still remains. No one is stopping them. All of these countries, except for the United States of America, all of these people who are publicly speaking out against what the UN has labeled a genocide, and America, by the way of President Trump, has yet to call this a genocide, has yet to recognize Palestine as a state. And all these people who support President Trump, like granted, you can support him on other legislation, other things that he's doing, like, okay, I like what President Trump is doing here, but when are all these right-wing people are going to come out and say, I disagree with President Trump, he should recognize Palestine as a statehood? Or are they in fear of backlash, right? Because here's the thing. Israel. Where's Israel getting their money? Where's Israel getting their support? Where's Israel getting their resources? Where's Israel getting technology? And it points back to, wait a minute, America. Because again, we're almost the only country that is not recognizing Palestine as a statehood. Where is it at? There's a map. We're the only country, ladies and gentlemen. And Israel has started to reoccupy Gaza once again. And I guess another good example would be when we're talking about, war crimes and genocide would be South Africa apartheid era and its recognition. The Kosovo independence recognition mattered, but came before full liberation. Palestine doesn't have any freedom. They're not liberated. And the only way they're going to become liberated is the entire world is going against Israel. Now, I don't know this speech verbatim, but in one of Adolf Hitler's speeches, he called Jews foul vermin that needs to be exterminated. I 1000% disagree with that. But I need to dive deeper into the text. I need to do a lot more research on why did he say that? Not that it's justified, but why, right? Because as people will always state, context matter. And not just contextualizing things, but the content of the context. Why did he say that? Why did he go out and murder and kill in all these very inhumane manners 6 million Jews? Why? Why did he believe that? And again, do not forget, a lot of the Jews that live in Israel, their descendants come from Eastern Europe mostly. They come from Russia, they come from Ukraine, they come from Poland, they come from Belarus, they come from all these different countries, right? If you look at them and they did blood tests on a genetic scale, they will come back as European, they will come back as white. Now they would tell you that their ethnic is Jew, which is a religion. I think then in that case, people around the world who claim themselves to be Christians, who claim themselves to be Muslim, is their ethnic group, right? But on a genetic scale, if we had to deal with the social construct of race, then majority of the Jews in Israel would be white, right? Or am I just blowing smoke? I'm just asking questions. That's all I'm doing here. Sometimes asking questions can get you in trouble, but that's the nature of the beast. But here's the truth. Here's the truth. I just want to make sure we stay on target with the truth here at Blacklogic. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you're notified every time I release a video. The truth is that America has yet to recognize Palestine as a statehood. As a matter of fact, they refuse to, by the way of President Trump and the American government. But let me tell you this, America is not the world, and the world has spoken. The UN has spoken. The oppressed have spoken. And in the long arc of history, recognition becomes reality. See, as we've been stating for a long time, right here on Blacklogic, that Palestine is not just an idea. Palestine is a nation. And the question is no longer if the world will accept it, but when will America will stop standing in the way of justice? Now, just to end on this note, and I'll probably not even report on Charlie Kirk ever again. In the end time of his days, within the last month before he was killed, even Charlie Kirk questioned Israel and its acts and its tactics against Palestine, as well as their statehood.